to Water Talk. We are getting ready and getting geared up for season 6 of our podcast. I can't believe that much time has gone by. And it actually feels like many years have gone by since we recorded our last episode, even though it was not even a year ago. So much has happened, I think, in our world, and especially those of us who are in science or studying water. Faith, Sam, how are you doing?
Doing well, ups and downs, something that I think that we've been adjusting according to the situations. It hasn't been easy being a scientist, but at the same time, I think it's part of life. We have to adjust. I think we're adjusting. And I am really looking forward to have the gang, both of you, Faith, Mallika, having our conversations. And really looking forward for this season 6. We have some surprises there. What about you, Faith?
I'm doing pretty well. I would say, it's the beginning of September, and so we're reaching the end of our hot season here in the Arizona desert, and it's kind of an opposite seasonal affective disorder. You get a little bit depressed in the summer in Arizona, and so it feels like a relief that it's starting to cool off a little bit, and we're still in our monsoon season, and I can take my dog out for walks again in the mornings. And so that's the upside. And I would say probably like Sam and Mallika are feeling, it's been a really challenging time. I think maybe we did our last episode actually earlier just this year, right? Maybe 6, 7, 8 months ago. So a lot has changed just since the beginning of this year, especially for scientists and the science community, the kind of work that we do. And so I would say, like everybody else, I'm feeling a lot of the uncertainty. I have many, many, many friends and colleagues who are out of work at the moment. And it's really interesting because a lot of people don't seem to realize how much what's going on in the country has really affected universities and the scientific endeavor. I really am surprised when I talk to people who have no idea that like half of my friends are out of work, right? So it's a really, really interesting time. And my own project ends in a year. So I'm also feeling the uncertainty and also just the differential way in which that uncertainty gets spread out depending on people's permanency of their position. So I would say, we're still going to talk about water, but also probably have to talk a little bit about the context in which we're all working. So some good, some bad. How about you, Mallika?
Yeah, I think the way that you're both discussing it makes sense to me. And we had a conversation of how do we not talk about some of this stuff that's happening right now, when even looking back at our other seasons, so many of the people we've talked to on this show have had their jobs impacted or have had their work impacted by everything that's going on and the loss of funding and support for science. So I don't think it's something that we can ignore. And I'm glad that we are addressing it. And, even thinking about just, we have talked a lot about being different kinds of people who study water and having different experiences and different perspectives as we consider water. And now more than ever, it feels like those different types of backgrounds and perspectives and experiences are also very much, what's the word? I don't even know. Like just very, very much threatened or scared to exist both as just a human and as a human that's studying water. So taking that into account, we're also just really excited about our national scope. And we love that we have so many listeners who are in the water world and, are water insiders and have a lot of kind of existing knowledge about water that you all are bringing to the table. And we love hearing from you. But we also want to make Water Talk more accessible to new people to water. So to new people to water, to young people, to people who are just kind of getting to know what water is about. So we're going to change the structure a little bit of Water Talk to help provide context for what we're going to talk about. So we came up with 2 new segments that we're going to sandwich our interviews when we talk to people. So we're going to have a primer that's just going to help maybe if there's key terms that we want to think about, or if there's kind of key geography that we want to talk through. We'll talk through that in our primer. And then the other section, we called it the parting gift. And that Faith came up with that term. Faith, you want to tell us what the parting gift is?
I think it was just a semi-clever way to try to give a too long didn't read at the end, or at least just kind of talk about our favorite parts of an interview or what we learned, just so that people have a key takeaway in their mind when the episode is over.
Yeah, absolutely. And we also want to just add a little bit more fun in these times to our episodes, and just think a little bit about the things that we love about water. So in that spirit, we thought we would share some of our things that we love about water. So Sam, what is your favorite body of water?
I was, as I was coming here, I was thinking of it. Definitely the Rio Grande, Rio Bravo. And that will be in the Big Bend National Park, Maderas del Carmen. And I mean, just seeing this river passing through different canyons. And I don't know, perhaps it also has some of what it can represent. I can identify myself as having this dual identity with one name in Spanish, another one in English, shared, living these 2 lives. Anyway, so yeah, definitely the Rio Grande, Rio Bravo at the Big Bend National Park. Faith, what about you?
Yeah, so I have so many different water bodies that I love. And the second you ask that question, I just imagine myself swimming in lots of different amazing places that I've been. But one of my favorites is here in my own backyard in Arizona. It's called the West Fork of Clear Creek, and it eventually empties into the Verde and ends up in Phoenix. But up here in northern Arizona, it's the most beautiful box canyon with a bunch of really beautiful sandstone formations and area called the Hanging Garden, where a bunch of ferns grow out of the side of this box canyon and you can swim under them. So I just feel really lucky to have such a thing in my neighborhood. How about you, Mallika?
Yes. So I was thinking about this, and I guess I was just thinking about like when I experienced the most joy around water. And I experienced the most joy on a lake in northern Wisconsin in Oneida County called Lake Minocqua. And it's a freshwater natural drainage lake. And it's a part of this chain of lakes. And that's what I really like about it is, every summer for a day, we just get a pontoon and we kind of tool around on this chain of lakes. And there's so many birds. I always count how many eagles I see. And I always see, I don't know, at least 5 eagles. Sometimes we've seen them hunt, which is really interesting and fun. And the waters are really clear. They're perfect for swimming in the summer. And it's usually just one of the best days of the year is the day that I spend on that lake or that chain of lakes.
Lovely.
Hey, Mallika, one thing, just going back to some of my initial comment that this was we're going to start in our 6th year, 5th anniversary. Fun fact, that was December last year. I was on a concert of one of my favorite rock bands, Café Tacuba, and they were celebrating their 35th anniversary. And I remember this band, our own band, Faith, Mallika, and I, on Water Talk. And we were discussing about some of our favorite episodes or some of our moments that we think they were fun. I always keep thinking, I think the one that I've listened the most is the one with Felicia Marcus, Water Diplomacy and Dialogue. And I think it really comes back to the moment that we are passing. She talks about having these conversations at dinner when people, you may not agree 100% of what it is said, but at the end, you are still family and you keep going. So I don't know. I have many, many, many episodes. We were discussing about some of those when we were preparing for this one. And we decided to only choose one, which for me, actually, that was quite difficult. I'm not sure if Faith Malika, have you thought about? So, by the way, this is episode 26, Water Diplomacy and Dialogue with Felicia Marcus. I'm not sure if Malika or Faith, you have any episode that you always come back or that you want to bring in our 5th anniversary.
So, Sam, sorry, I was the one when we talked who said I was going to be such a stickler about only picking one, and I picked 2. Just because I feel like there's 2 phases of the show. So I had a hard time really just focusing on one, because I think like for me, in the first phase when we were focusing primarily on California and we were in like deep pandemic as well, one of my favorites was California Peaches and Water. When we talked to Matsumoto about peaches and then just his approaches for farming in the Central Valley, that one really sticks with me. I just loved speaking with him. In my line of work, I feel like I've had the pleasure of talking with some of the most interesting and amazing farmers in the country, and he is definitely one of them. And he's also somebody that I think touches a lot of people. So like I'll just be making my way through my life and I'll see like cultural references to the Matsumoto peach farm in just the most interesting and places. Like I was reading just a novel called Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. It's about like video gamers. And just at some point there's this reference to the Matsumoto peaches in that book. And I was like, oh my goodness, I know all about these peaches. So yeah, I just, there's so many touches to that farm and to those peaches that is one of my favorite episodes. And the other one is kind of in the newer phase for us that I was thinking about. And I really, really loved talking with the law professor, Ode Salim, who we talked with last season about the Great Lakes Compact. I've been just really wanting to learn more and more about the Great Lakes. And I'm just, so awed by them being back here. And I think it's one of those things where I had to leave and come back because I grew up so close to them that I don't think I understood how special they were until I moved away. And now coming back, I'm kind of re-engaged and thinking about how special they are, and to hear just more about their governance of those, transboundary waters was really, really interesting to me.
And just for the reference of the listeners, so the California Peaches and Water, episode 14, and then episode 58, Great Lakes Compact. Faith, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, like you all, this is definitely a struggle in terms of there have been so many great guests and so many great episodes, and we have gone through a lot of changes just because we started as this pandemic project, right? And have ended up where we are now. But I think I would go back to our second season talking with Katja Risling Baldi from Humboldt State, which is now, I think, I can't remember what the new name for Humboldt State is, but yeah, it's Cal Poly. Yeah. And the thing that I loved about talking with Katja was something that I think is super helpful right now, which was that, she was talking a lot about the land back movement, and the attached water back movement in terms of thinking about Indigenous peoples getting their land back. And so it was really interesting how hopeful she was and how she kind of started that episode out by saying something along the lines of, surprising things can happen, right? Magical things can happen. And so, we're just as likely to see good things happen as bad things happen. And I think, at least for me right now, that's a super helpful message to hear from somebody whose background is one of, dispossession and really challenging times, to sort of say there's always a possibility of something new and interesting happening. And so I think the conversation that we had with her was just really of this time. And there's been a lot around the taking down of some of the Klamath dams, which we talked with Katja about, that's now complete, which is really interesting to think about sort of just a few years later. And then the other thing I really appreciated, right, is that Katja, we were talking a little bit about her friend and our colleague, Melanie Yahtzee, and she was talking about how radical Melanie is and how that keeps her sort of thinking about where her positionality is in terms of how she thinks about futures and that kind of thing. And so I really appreciated also just the ability to talk with somebody about the different and nuanced perspectives among many Indigenous people. So I think that was a great episode. And I'm going to, take one from Mallika's book and say that I also really loved our episode 64 from season 5 with Sonora Taylor, who was talking about this idea of disabled groundwater. She wrote a book about some groundwater contamination in the Tucson, Arizona area. And it was just such an interesting and different perspective on groundwater, just one that people would be really unlikely to hear from anybody else. And so I really, really recommend that episode as well. And I do feel like we should give Sam a chance to pick one from our new season, should he choose.
Oh, yeah. And of the decolonizing water is episode 19 and 20, the episodes that Faith were discussing. And yes, I'm going to pick another one.
Oh, Sam, before you do, I just wanted to say, I looked it up while you were talking, Faith. It's Cal Poly Humboldt. Now that...
Yes.
I knew there was an extra word there. Thank you.
Yes. So, the other one that I think all the episodes that you're mentioning surprised me in different ways. This one surprised me, I don't know, something that I haven't thought of myself. Episode 59 with Juliet Christian Smith, Science and Civic Engagement. That one was an interesting conversation about the role of scientists and how, with or without wanting us, we have a specific positionality in our world. And I think that was a good conversation. As you are mentioning, we have interviewed amazing guests. This one, I know that she was an amazing scientist. The conversation, when it starts going into that direction, on our positionality as scientists, how the things that we are doing affect our society, what is our role in society. I think that conversation really surprised me, and something that I never thought. I learned from that conversation. And perhaps, for me, Water Talk and all our guests is one of the ways that I keep myself updated on real, local, tangible issues from our guests. And I hope our listeners also learn from this. This is one of the best ways for me to get myself up to date in different topics.
Wonderful, Sam. Yeah, that was also a fantastic episode. So I'm glad that we did relax the rule and have you highlight that one. For our listeners, we are going to also link to all of our selected favorites. And I don't want to say all of our favorites because it was even hard to pick two. But as I think to the season ahead, I think we have tried to, find a lot of interesting stories, find a lot of timely stories, still find joy in some of the darkness, but also, talk about some emerging serious issues that we're seeing as well. So it's going to be kind of a mix of it all. And stay tuned for season 6 of Water Talk. Thanks for listening. Thank you for listening to the Water Talk podcast. I'm Mallika Nocco, an assistant professor and state extension specialist in agricultural water management at the University of Wisconsin-Madison.
I'm Faith Kearns, and I'm the Director of Research Communications with the Arizona Water Innovation Initiative at Arizona State University.
I'm Sam Sandoval. I'm a professor at UC Davis and a cooperative extension specialist in water resources management at the University of California Division of Agriculture and Natural Resources. If you enjoy our show, please review, listen, like, and subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. Please find transcripts and additional content at watertalkpodcast.com. Original music by Paloma Herrera Thomas.